Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this big guy, the Spyderco Pacific Salt. So, the Salt is an interesting blade here. Basically, it's an Endura, a Spyderco Endura. Sorry, wipe off the blade here, just cleaned it off. And the difference is that this guy is using H1 steel. And H1 steel is interesting because it is rust-proof. It just doesn't rust. They've replaced some of the carbon in there with some nitrogen, and therefore it is not vulnerable to rusting. So you can throw this one on the bottom of the ocean and presumably come back for it in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be A-okay, which is kind of cool. And I do want to thank my buddy Roger for sending this guy along because, hey, it's excellent, and I really appreciate the loan. That was a beautiful thing for you. Size-wise, here is an Ontario Rat number 2, an Ontario Rat number 1. So you can see that the blade length is about in the same department as the Rat 1 here. Here it is compared to your Spyderco Delica. So a big knife. This is not small by any stretch of the imagination. Next to your ZT452CF, which is one of few knives that makes this guy feel compact and petite. And, yeah, I think that'll do for size comparison for the moment. And the US quarter, why not, right? So, let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly of your Spyderco Pacific Salt. So, on the good side here, you've got a huge blade in a pretty lightweight package. And the reason they can manage that is because there are no liners on the inside here. On knives like your Delica here, hopefully you can see this, there's some stainless steel nested underneath the FRN here, versus on the, on your Salt here, you don't have that. So it's very lightweight, 2.9 ounces for all of this blade compared to 2.28 for the Delica, much less blade, and for a similar amount of blade in the Rat 1, I'm sorry, you get 5 ounces. So it's very light for the amount of knife you get in here. And it's plenty robust. You know, is it the ultimate survival knife? Probably not, but it is just fine for what it is. So that's nice. Ergonomics on this guy are pretty solid. As usual, it's benefiting from the Endura line in Spyderco, although it's an older model of the Endura it's based on. But the ergos are good. That's something Spyderco's always good at, and so that's nice. It's got a nice backlock to it, and it's a Spyderco backlock, and Spyderco is really good at doing backlocks. So, you know, that's just a beautiful thing. Like I said, this is benefiting from many years of research from the Endura Delica line, and just improved here. Build quality on it is just fine. Is it perfect? No. I mean, some of this area is ugly. This is right out of the factory, by the way. Some of the areas are a little bit ugly here, but that's just okay. This is a tool, and it's more specifically a very specialized sort of tool. So it's not necessarily a knife you're carrying for pocket jewelry, and it doesn't have to be gorgeous. So there you go. The price on it is fine. I'm not in love with the price. I'm also not offended by it. They're 80 bucks. And, you know, the Endura's about that price, a little lower. And this has a specialized steel. You know, there's give and take. It's not a bad price, though. So if you're looking at this, don't feel like you're getting ripped off at all. But it also doesn't really tickle me in any particular way. And then finally, the very best part of this knife is that it is just rust-proof. And that's really what this knife is really best for. This is a knife that you can throw in your canoe, or your kayak, or your wet bag, or your scuba gear, and it's gonna be just fine. Nothing you're gonna do to this knife in terms of corrosion is gonna hurt it. You know, if you need to store it at the bottom of a lake for a couple of weeks, you can do that. You come back and you got a knife, no problem. So that's the good. It's a huge blade in a light package, solid ergonomics, solid backlock. Build quality's fine for what you need here. Prices, fine. And it does not rust, period. Let's jump on to your bad. Couple of bad things here. The clip is only tip-up. I don't mind tip-up carry at all. In fact, I prefer it. But for some people, that's going to be a deal-breaker. A lot of your more modern Spydercos have a 4-way clip. This guy does not. It just has the 2 ways. And so that's something to keep in mind. The clip design is a little strange as well, in that you've got this kind of interesting fastener here that's not really ideal for takedown, but whatever. It does the trick, but it seems to be a more rust-resistant way to go. So you're not going to be able to replace it with, say, a deep carry clip aftermarket as easily, or perhaps even at all. So that's something. The Spidey hole and the edges of the blade, but really the Spidey hole, are very sharp on this guy. Absolutely, almost ridiculously so. And when you're using this with wet hands, that's a little it's a little concerning. So anyways, Spidey hole is sharp, that's no good. It is a pretty huge knife, especially in the pocket, because it'll hang like this, but the blade is very wide, it's long, it's big on many dimensions, and so this is not a knife that you forget about necessarily being in your pocket here. To give you a sense, it's a little bit bigger than your Spyderco PM2, which is an equivalently huge knife. So, yeah, that is really something you got to keep in mind. If you don't like big knives, this is certainly not the way to go. They make a Spyderco Salt 1 that is the equivalent of a Delica with the same steel, and is going to be much more interesting there. And then finally, like I pointed out earlier, there are no liners on the inside, which means this is going to be a little less robust than the Endura in the handle department and also in the steel, but we'll get there. So that's your bad. It's got a two-way only clip with a kind of strange design. The Spidey hole on this guy is really needing some chamfering. It's way too sharp. And the knife is a little bit huge in the pocket. Let's go on ahead and jump into the ugly. Okay, the ugly here is just one thing, and that's that H1 steel is a very specialized steel, and it's not a great choice for dry land. I did a video recently. My buddy Jim lended me a Spyderco Salt, and unfortunately, so I did a video with a whole bunch of edge cutting tests and comparisons and things like that, just to see how good H1 steel was. Thing is, unfortunately, due to a hard drive failure, thank you very much, Apple, I lost that one video. Luckily, that was about the only file I lost. I'm pretty happy about that. Use backups, people. But anyways, so I don't have that file anymore, but basically I took the salt, I sharpened it up to a really good edge, and I did cardboard cutting. And I made 10 slices of cardboard through, a chunk of cardboard about this long, and the edge was already dull to the point where it didn't really cut phone book paper. And that's really not impressive to me. And I tried the same test, same cardboard and everything, with the Rat 2 here, an OS8 steel, which is a steel I don't love. And after 16 cuts, it was doing fine and showing no sign of flagging. So, H1 is just not a great steel in terms of edge retention and in terms of toughness and things like that. So that's something you really do have to keep in mind. This is a great knife for not rusting. And so if you're in a specialist situation where you're constantly getting doused with salt water or something like that, this is the steel you want, because it will not die like other knives. But if you're in a situation where you maybe occasionally see some water and you can go home and wash your knife out afterwards, you're going to be just fine. I wouldn't do H1 steel unless you are very specifically marine or nautical. If you spend more of your day wet than dry, okay, think about it. But otherwise, get a regular knife and maintain it just fine. And so, as a result, the Salt Pacific here is only a specialist tool. And that's kind of the ugly, is it's not a great choice for all-around EDC in this steel. Let's go on into the final verdict here. Actually, come to think of it, that was my final verdict there. I mean, basically, it's a solid knife. Solidly designed. It's got a lot of really excellent things going for it here, based on the Endura and everything like that. But unless you really need rust-proof, this isn't the very best tool for you for everyday carry. But if you do need something that won't rust, and you've tried another knife and it rusted in half in 10 minutes, then by God, this is a really solid tool. So I hope this has been interesting to you, that the commenters aren't too salty about it. And that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.